my fellow curious minds, and welcome back to Tech Advantage, a podcast where we talk about technology, business, and personal growth. I'm your host, Tondow Abraham, co-founder and head of technologies at BlueMind. And today, this is the 16th episode of Tech Advantage. I want to pause for a moment and reflect on the journey so far. When I started this podcast, the goal was simple: to document conversations with builders, thinkers, engineers, and creators, and explore how technology intersects with career, business, and life, especially from an African perspective. 16 episodes later, I've had incredible conversations, learned a lot, and observed patterns from people doing meaningful work. So today, I want to share 10 lessons podcasting has taught me about tech, business, and life. Lesson 1: consistency is harder than talent. Starting something is exciting, but showing up every week, preparing conversations, recording episodes, publishing, promoting, that's where the real work is. Consistency quietly separates people who start things from people who actually build things. Lesson 2: most successful people think differently. Another thing I've noticed with most successful people is that they think differently. They're not just reacting to what exists. They're constantly asking questions like, how can this be better? Why does this system work this way? What can be built here? How do we integrate this to our work system? That mindset of questioning and curiosity is a huge advantage. Lesson 3: the future belongs to the builders. The third lesson is simple. The future belongs to the people who build. Not just people who talk about ideas, not just people who consume technology, but people who create systems, products, companies, and solutions. Builders shape the future. Lesson 4: Africa is full of hidden giants. Another realization from hosting this podcast is that Africa is full of great minds and hidden giants truly. There are engineers, founders, researchers, thinkers, a lot of people in different spaces doing impressive work, often without global spotlight. And part of the mission at Tech Advantage is to highlight these voices and tell those stories. Lesson 5: tech is more about thinking than coding. A lot of people assume technology is just coding, but the more conversations I've had, the more I've realized something even deeper. Technology is really about thinking, problem solving, system designs, understanding how things work, and also how they can work better. Coding is just a tool, but the real skill is how you think. Lesson 6: clarity comes from doing. Another lesson I've learned is rarely do we ever get to understand how the whole system would work from the start. But clarity comes from doing. You don't figure everything out from the start. You start, and then clarity comes through action. Every episode recorded, every conversation, every experiment brings a little more clarity to how things would go over time. Lesson 7: conversations can change your life. Something else I've realized is how powerful conversations can be. A single conversation can introduce a new perspective, a new idea, or even a new opportunity. I recently had an opportunity to host a podcast for Founders Friday. And the guest we had, Miss Habiba, told us about marketing strategies and how to scale as a business. She gave us great insight, and such a conversation is good propellers for founders. She also opened us to new opportunities as founders and told us about the Ericsson program. I was so fortunate to implement a team, and we had made a submission for Ericsson as a result of this great conversation. Sometimes the right conversation at the right time can change your direction of life. Lesson 8: nobody knows everything. Another lesson is humility. The more experts you talk to, the more you realize something interesting. Nobody really knows everything at all. Even the smartest people are still learning, still experimenting, still figuring things out. That realization removes the fear of starting, because everyone is learning as they go. Yeah, this is a valid truth. Everyone learns as they go. Now, lesson 9: personal branding is a real asset. I really cannot overemphasize on this. This podcast has also reminded me that personal branding is a real asset in the game. When you share ideas, create conversations, and contribute value publicly, build trust and credibility, and this is a great way to propel your personal brand. Over time, that becomes a powerful asset that opens doors. So anyone listening to this podcast, I urge you to take personal branding more intentionally and leaving it all vague. And the final lesson, number 10. This is just the beginning. 16 episodes is just the start. The vision for Tech Advantage is bigger, more conversations, more builders, more insight about tech, innovation, growth, and all of that stuff, especially from voices shaping the future across the country, across Africa, and the world at large. So if you've listened to Tech Advantage thus far, thank you for following the podcast, and do share this episode with anyone you'd like to give great knowledge about tech to. And if you're building something, learning something, or working towards anything meaningful at all, keep going. Thank you for following this podcast, and remember, technology is your advantage.